product evangelist at Paligo. He has over 25 years of experience in the documentation field, and he runs his own documentation company. He provides consulting as well as writing services to both small and enterprise customers. Other than that, his fun fact is he's an entrepreneur by nature and has a special liking for the content field. So that explains why he has 25 years of experience in the documentation field. So before going into the meeting, into the webinar, uh, I just want to lay out the rules that if you are munching something or if you are talking, please go on mute so that it doesn't affect other listeners of the webinar. Another thing, please guys, you just go on pinging in the chat any questions that you have. We will assist you at the end of the meeting by asking the questions to the presenter, Steve Wiseman. And also, please put where you are from in the chat so we'll know from which part of the world you are listening to. So, everyone, are you ready? Excited? Let's head into the webinar. Over to you, Steve.
Thank you very much, Sandeep. By the way, if you're looking for a new guys, you clap at the end, not the beginning, because if you clap at the beginning, it raises the expectation level, right? And you put the pressure on me. Sandeep, if you ever want to move out of technical writing into public relations, right, you did a really, really good job making me sound good. So I appreciate that. And by that, I'm sorry about this really boring background. I have a picture just to prove it, which is here. But to hold this picture while I'm talking and to do a demo is physically impossible, okay? And I'm normally a Zoom person with a background, so unfortunately you'll have to deal with, and to put the slides on, my boring background. Hello to everybody. Maybe there's some people I know already. I can only see initials, so I don't know. And hello to all the people I've never spoken to before. I normally live on interaction. When I'm doing demos, it's very much not a presidential speech. Here we have a little bit of a limitation. If you all speak at once, we can't do anything. But like Sandeep says, send your questions in, and I might just ask Bonito Sandeep to, ask some questions occasionally to get you interacted. I'm going to do my best to finish on time. I'm obviously not going to manage, but we'll have to stop at some point. And honestly, 121 meetings weekly consecutively, that is quite an achievement, guys. That's like unbelievable. Right, I'm absolutely honoured. It's like a beautiful number 121 that I am. That's really, really amazing. But I've never spoken to a tribe before, so I'm kind of half scared you'll all gang up on me and cause me problems. So hopefully you won't. Hopefully there'll be no tribulations, just tributes. So let me try and share my screen in this unfamiliar surroundings of. There we go. Can you all see my screen? Yeah, is that a yes?
Okay. Yes, Steve.
Okay.
Yes, Steve.
Yes.
Okay. Okay. I see. Oh, someone's already putting their hands up. I haven't said anything yet. Okay. Delivered great documentation. By the way, my accent. By the way, I'm originally from Liverpool. I live in Israel, but the accent is a Liverpool one. Not a very strong one, I must admit, which is a bit of a shame. I lost it down the years, but it's still a Liverpool one. So the idea of Paligo is deliver great documentation, give you the tools and the modern tools, and we'll emphasize the word modern, right? Because a lot of us are working in products that over 20 years ago. Modern tools to allow you to manage your whole authoring workflow, the authoring side, manage versions, manage workflows. For those of you in translations is actually a really expensive part of the authoring process. I think we can go some way to solving that, and I'm guessing some of you are interested in that. The publishing side to multiple channels, and we'll see, and all in one collaborative space. So it's cloud-based, it's not Windows-based. You don't need a virtual machine on a Mac. It doesn't matter where you are, what you're using, Chrome on a Mac, also Safari, you all work together. There's nothing to install, there's no setup. I had a company once, this is an exaggerated example, where he actually imported his Word file, made his HTML5 help site, within the demo period, after about 2 days, was live. And I am not at all suggesting, migrating a company takes 2 days, not even 2 weeks, but it's just an exaggerated example of what's possible. I'm just putting a couple of slides on purpose, and I can put any slides here. I just want to make a real important point. As technical writers, as you know that I am, we've got to remember that the reason we're writing is not because we like the written word, it's because we want to help the company successful. We want to remember the business aspect of what we're doing. Somebody writes something because they want to achieve either a personal or a business goal. So that technical communities impact revenue by making customers happy. We affect different parts of the customer journey, the pre-sales, the onboarding, the training side, the getting started, experienced users, lots of different touch points on that customer journey we affect. It's just an important point to remember, because sometimes we argue which authoring system is best, which structured authoring standard is best. But that shouldn't be the question. The question should be, which product helps me provide, give my company the best possible solution for helping our customers, or internally or internal customers, whatever it may be. Really, really important to get the emphasis right. Okay. And my screen's just gone black. Why has my screen just gone black? That's strange. Okay. Let me just get out of there and do that again. So I think any product of our kind has to provide three things as a minimum. And if a product doesn't provide these things, I think there's a problem. First of all, the authoring experience must be great for that's the people here, I assume, on this call at the moment. We need to make sure that we can write clearly. The collaboration experience, because someone actually told me that we don't do technical writing anymore, we do technical curating. We don't often write content like I used to with a pad and paper, 25 years ago. We have our SMEs provide the content. We organize it, manage it, all do the clever reuse and the conditions or whatever it may be, and then we send it out again for review. That's a really important part of the process. It's not a kind of side on a nice thing to do. It should be integral. And like I just spoke about, the customer experience as well, making sure the content that you write is available for customers the best way. Great search experience, it looks great, it's branded correctly, it's written right. It's very important to remember these things. Again, I think sometimes when we discuss products and solutions, we certainly don't think about the CX. We'll naturally maybe think of the authoring experience because that's what we do. But the emphasis should always be, what do my customers need? What's good for them? So I wanted to throw those in just to make sure that we have the right mindset. Now, I want to discuss this first, but we'll probably go into it later. We get asked, why should I use Paligo rather than the hats? Why should I use Paligo rather than Doctor's Code or other CCMSs? I'm going to try to succinctly, because I know you guys want to see the product, try to deal with these questions now, okay? And I'm not here to put down any product. I might say a general type of thing, because every product has its place in the sun. Every product has its solution for a certain type of environment, okay? And I'm trying to explain where Paligo is. So first of all, unstructured solutions. Just example of unstructured solutions, Word, Google Docs, all the type of hats. I don't want to list them intentionally, whether the Confluences of this world and the Markdowns. And a word that I use, maybe you'll call it extreme, is chaos and anarchy. And the reason why I say that is because anybody can do whatever they want. If one person, a Windows machine, someone another Windows machine, they could do different things. You could put indents under a bullet in like 3 different ways, shift enter, a style, tabs, whatever it could be. You end up with a case, and this is a statistic I've never actually seen, but every time I say it, people nod. So I think it has some legitimacy from the number of nods that I get, is that you probably write 60% authoring and 40% formatting and fiddling with the content when you're in an unstructured solution. Or another way, 4 things writers do every day. They have breakfast, lunch, dinner, and tweaking. That's the unstructured solutions, which I think are very valid if you're a company with 1 or 2 writers. When you're a company with 3, 4, 5, 10, 50, 500 writers, you need to probably move into a structured solution, which we'll talk about in a second, where there's a lot more inherent rules going on. There isn't the wide independence of people to do what they want to do. That's the unstructured world. The unstructured world is also generally proprietary. In other words, they have their own type of source. It's not an industry standard. That makes your future migrations a big problem. If I was looking at a new solution, whether I'd go for Paligo, obviously I'm biased, but I certainly wouldn't go for unstructured solutions. That's for sure. Docs as code, I want a nice slide on the next page. Other CCMSs, that's component content management systems. That means these enterprise level systems that are generally based on an industry standard, whether it be DocBook or DITA, which I wasn't intending to talk about, but if you want me to later, ask me a question on it. And it's implementing some of these old, more like DITA type systems tend to be very involved. You've got an authoring system like Oxygen, you've got some sort of CCMS, you need experts to create XSLT to create the transformations. Big, large, historical systems. Where Paligo is very, very different to all the others is it's much, much easier to use. That's one of the reasons why Paligo's made such a noise in the last 4 years, since I joined the company anyway, because it just takes this hard enterprise level world and makes it much easier to use. So you get the enterprise, you get the structured authoring without the pain of learning and with the pain of implementation. I'll just move to Docs as code. This is actually out of a branching talk that will be released soon that I gave. I'll stay out of your kitchen if you stay out of mine. What do I mean by that? If I say to a developer, hey, Mr. or Miss Developer, I want you to do all your coding inside Paligo, and I want you to do all your versioning and branching inside Paligo, they'd call me mad. So why do writers use things like Git, etc., to manage their code as well? So writers should keep out dev versioning like devs should keep out of content versioning. The authors should really be using a system that's good for authors rather than for devs. Whether you agree or you don't agree, at least I hope you like the metaphor in the slide. Okay, so let's move on a little bit. Reasons our customers choose Paligo: so easy structured authoring. So based on an industry standard, happens to be called DocBook, right? We chose that simply because it's easier. You don't need, if those of you who know DITA, sometimes people take a step back when they hear the word DITA, because you genuinely need to learn what I call the theory of DITA before the practice of the product. In Paligo, you don't learn anything about structured authoring. You don't need to learn DocBook. You can forget it exists. Just know you're covered by being future-proof. The product deals with all the reuse, and cross-references and taxonomies is dealt with within the product. You don't have to learn through. It's a big deal because, well, I also wrote something on LinkedIn you might have seen during the week. People, in the same way you say Google for a search or a Hoover for a vacuum cleaner, people tend to say DITA when they mean for structured authoring. Let's just remember what structured authoring is, and there's other standards. Single sourcing and content reuse. You all guys know what that is. That's what you're looking for. You want to, reuse content as much as possible. All the collaboration is built in between the authors and the rest of the team, together with the review workflow. And the multi-channel publishing, another thing that separates us very different from the other CCMSs, how easy it is to create your outputs. Maybe some here, if anybody on this group are using Paligo, maybe they can share some of their experiences later of what you guys been doing to share of them. Me talk all the time, but we have HTML, PDF, e-learning, including quizzes and some interaction. The Zendesk integration, right, in Paligo pushes Zendesk is extremely popular at the moment. Zendesk like it actually. ServiceNow, Salesforce, the dedicated platforms for tech docs, for publishing like Zoom and Fluid Topics, integrations with GitHub, Netlify, Amazon S3, Azure, etc., together with API. Put it where you want without a lot of trouble. This is what we call the Paligo solar system. We'll try and go through as much as this, so I've got an eye on the time. Authoring, reuse, versioning, including branching built in. The collaboration all built in. We integrate with translation process and translation memory systems and publishing. Enterprise grade, so we're talking security. Everybody's going to ask about security. Everybody's got IP. That's very important. Reliability, you see the number, and scalability with the 5, 10, 15, etc. You don't ever have to leave Paligo. It's built for enterprises, but also smaller, medium-sized companies can use it, and some of our customers. So before I move on to the demo, were there any pressing questions that came up, Bonita, Sandeep? Or shall I just carry on?
Anybody has question right now?
If there aren't any, we'll move on. It's just, are there any pressing ones? If the guys have questions, they should write in. Okay?
Yeah, sure.
Okay. Right. Welcome to Paligo. If you noticed, there's a URL. Okay, I get excited sometimes. There's a URL. Okay, it's just proving no one installs anything at all. Not you, not the SMEs, not the reviewers, not the contributors. You all have a URL. Very, very simple, makes a big difference, especially for those of you currently stuck in Windows. Nothing wrong with Windows, but there is something wrong when it's just Windows and not anything else. We have all sorts of things going here. The activity feed, just to give an example, it's like a small reporting. Show me all the stuff that, for example, Steve has created recently. So you can come in as a manager and see the recent things that have been going on. But the real work starts over here. Documents where your content goes, media is where your images go. Everything, by the way, is just managing folders, whatever, however you might have 10,000 topics and images and just manage those as folders and the hierarchy. Templates, which is ready-made content for your documents. Variables, we'll see if we get to that. Taxonomies, we're just mentioning it. Taxonomy is a big word in organizations at the moment, even outside of tech docs. It's just a way of reorganizing your content. Tagging content, like even you see in labels in Zendesk or in Gmail. And it just gives you a different way to manage and organize your content, even to create searches from them. I don't know if we'll get there later, but it's worth mentioning because it's a very important word and has to be dealt with. Let me open documents. So we have folders. I just want to give you a couple of examples because there's a database behind the scenes. And I think it makes a huge difference in relation to file-based systems. And I'll give you a couple of ideas why. So I'm just going to click on tutorial topics. So it opens what we call the resource view, everything inside this folder. If I click on this left icon, it shows me a lot of metadata. Well, first of all, the translations, but I want to show you related resources. And this is actually showing me where is this topic being reused in my system, including where it's linked to or linked from. I call it change management. Say, I want to make a change and I want to know the ramifications of that change. You know, the database allows me to see, and if I say, for example, let's say in this topic here, I don't want to change it, so I can do something about it. So I always know the ramifications of changes I'm going to make. These are the images in this topic. I can click on one and it shows me here, where is this image being reused? Again, really useful. And if we're in this screen, I can actually set a Chinese version, for example, and update a Chinese version to here, or other languages. You know, if you were doing this in another system, you'd have to use all sorts of conditions, you know, to hide and show those different images. You can do it automatically here. Another thing with a database, and I kind of say, and you know me a bit already, guys, I have my silly expressions. Paligo can stop you being an idiot. Why? Because if I take this topic here and I go delete, Paligo's going to shout at me and say, Stephen, you can't do it. It's being used an amazing 38 times. So I can't say that Paligo will stop you making mistakes, but it'll certainly reduce silly mistakes, to be honest, that we all make at some point. And that's the database, again, showing how things are connected. But what I'd like to do is now to create some new content. I've got a couple of folders here. You can call them whatever you want. You just go to create folder. Just if you import import content into Paligo, automatically gives you publishing topics. It doesn't matter how you organize them. I'd like to make some new content. Maybe Sandeep, you can actually help me create some new content here. Okay, so I'm going to go here, and your screen's opposite me, so which is really good. So you're the guinea pig to help. Okay, so I'm going to go to 3 dots, and I'm going to go to create content. Now we're called again a component CMS. Some people are confused by the word component, a scary word. Let's remove that fear. So a publication is my table of contents. A topic, I'm assuming if you're all experienced technical writers, you know, even the hats are also topic-based authoring, a title with stuff underneath. An informal topic, some of you might call it a snippet. Reusable chunk of content I can use anywhere. If it's not standalone, it could be a table, it could be a procedure, it could be a copyright notice, whatever you want. An appendix for those still doing PDFs. And all these admonitions are all reusing components, all my reusable Lego pieces that I can reuse again and again. So we're going to create a publication. And Sandeep, this is going to be called what? What are we going to call it?
Let's call it Paligo publication.
Oh, no, we can't do that. We're going to managing. Okay, we'll call it managing football teams. Okay.
Football team. Cool.
Okay. For those of you who don't like football, just imagine it says something else like tennis. I played 2 hours of tennis this morning, guys, so we can call it tennis. I really did, by the way, and I lost 7-5 in the final set. Okay, I know. So taking part that counts. Managing football teams. So let's create some new content from here. Go to new topic. So the first one will be finding a team. Let's create another one. Sending your CV. And the third one will be bribing your way to the top. Okay. Again, if you don't have a sense of humor, you won't like my demos. Okay. I'm going to take these 3 topics here, and I'm going to move them into this topics folder. So you can see here we have our structure and we have our repository. Let's actually let's put bribing into a subset in sending your CV. And let's even bring a couple of other topics. Let's say these 2, that's why they get used so much. I put them in my demos, and let's put that here. So we have a small hierarchy, a table of content. We can move things up and down. Very simple. And by the way, what I'd like you all to notice as we've done this and as we move on, that all I know ahead of you guys is the buttons to press. There's no coding. There's been nothing complicated that I'm doing. It's just going to be new to a lot of you, which is fair enough, but there's nothing hard going on. I assume everybody's understood how we've created our publication from new and existing topics. Now I'm going to go into sending your CV. So I'm clicking on there, and this is the authoring environment. So for those of you who've never seen it before, please just notice there's a friendly toolbar, there's some text here, and there's loads of white space. Not an XML tag to be found. Okay, so one of the things that also unique about Paligo in relation to other CCMSs, and also HATs to be honest, is that Paligo is used outside of tech docs. There's a municipality in Montreal called Laval. They're writing content for their citizens. I love saying that, content for their citizens in Paligo. There are internal companies, HR, legal. They're all relevant to anywhere where you reuse content, because you don't have to be a rocket scientist, or in other words, an experienced technical writer to use Paligo, without dumbing down any functionality, as hopefully we're going to see. So notice here, this is a title, this is our structure. We talk about structured authoring. For those of you who've never seen structured authoring, within 5 minutes, as long as you don't get disconnected, you will understand structured authoring. This is a title inside a section. It's not a heading 1 or a heading 2 or a heading 3. It makes it naturally much more reusable. It's inherently reusable because I can put it anywhere, and when Paligo publishes, it gives it the appropriate heading level. So it's another big part of the whole reuse story. This is text. So this topic explains send your CV. I know with technical writers, I have to fix this because otherwise we'll all get annoyed looking at it. And now I say I want to put a procedure in. So I go down a level. Now there's 3 ways to put in the same procedure. I can either click on the icon, or the shortcut, or Alt-Enter brings my list of elements. Now most of you there probably just have headings, paragraphs, lists, tables, images, videos, code, admonitions, and if you're unlucky, mathematical equations. That's basically all you probably have. There's a very small amount of what we call elements that you need to learn. Here I've got the procedure. And let's see what Paligo's created for me. I got a paragraph inside that first step of the procedure, the section. These are all linked together. In other words, they're structured. So the first thing would write your CV. Second, format it nicely. Get it in LinkedIn. Something like that. Okay. And each time Paligo has created my step in the paragraph, they'll see to the section. Let's do a couple of things. Let's put a paragraph inside under here. So go down here to one level, and I'll just put a paragraph in. Remember, it's connected to the step. So write your CV, think carefully. It's not like in the hats, a paragraph stood by itself, or like in Word. Okay. It's I could actually say a paragraph inside a step looks different to a paragraph inside a table, for example. The structure allows me to do so. Let's say I want to put a title at the top of the procedure. Look as I move my cursor up, how the breadcrumbs, how the structure changes at the top. And if I click Alt-Enter, I see a title. So let's call it to send. So I want to be really radical and naughty. I want to put a title here as well. Okay, watch. Title, I can't do it. There's nothing to learn. You don't need to learn these rules because we're based on DocBook, and it was basically written by technical writers for technical writers. I personally have never taken a course on DocBook, and I don't know anybody who has. You just learn by the UI, and that's an obvious one to learn. And when I click Save, look on the right-hand side, Paligo will tell you that we've validated this document, which means we've kept to the rules. It's hard to break the rules. Even if you find a way to break the rules, and we're human beings, we like to try to do that, it's not going to help you because you won't be able to save your content. Let me also just show you something else, just really to indicate a point. I'm going to go into the code, not because you need to, because you really don't, but just look how clean it is. A power at the beginning, saying a power at the end with a database ID at the beginning. There's no formatting. We are completely separating the authoring and the layout. Again, very different to some of the lower level systems. Right? You could write here and you could publish for 35 different companies, 2,000 different outputs, each one looking different to the other because the source content is so clean. In the layout, which I don't know if we'll get to today, by the way, I'm not having to do a second session if we do run out of time, but we have layouts here. That's where you define how your HTML is, your PDF and whatever else looks like, right? So what we're looking here is a graphical representation of this code. I'll do a preview soon, but let's do a couple of other things first. Let's, for example, put a graphic in here. So I just go insert image, and I'll go without a title. I can upload all sorts, you know, from your PNGs and your JPEGs, SVGs, interactive SVGs, all the vector-based like Adobe Illustrator, even a PDF picture. But that's a picture of a car. And again, Paligo's put the structure in there for me. Okay, let's change the size of this image. So I just go to add attribute, go in width, and say 30%. Hopefully everybody's following this. Let's put a couple of bulleted lists, a bulleted list under here. So I'll go back to edit, bulleted list. Let's call it bull 1 and bull 2 just to save time. That's quite an involved topic now. So it'll be interesting if you've understood what I'm showing, maybe just put your hands up just so I can see. But I'm hoping that for those of you who've never seen structured authoring before, now you understand structured authoring. And if you've understood what I've shown you, you've understood Paligo, because everything in Paligo is based on what we just saw, right? Obviously, you need a bit of training and to get used to it, but it really wasn't that hard to do what we did. And now I can preview it. So let's preview it in HTML5. So it's previewing in my Paligo format. It could, you know, you could brand it and choose to preview in yours as well. Excuse me a second, please. Oi, I'm using the wrong preview. Let me just change that a second, please. And that's what happens. You do lots and lots of previews. Let's do that again. Here's a live example of changing what the preview looks like. And there we go. There's our content, there's our image, it opens up like this. This is all automatically done. To change this, I can change any style, even a version switcher. Was this helpful? And this is all out the box. This is basically an out the box format, more or less. Very simple to do. So it's quite an involved topic. Anybody got any immediate questions on the authoring system before I move on? Not that we have a lot of time. Okay.
Steve, I believe you're seeing the questions because you're answering them one by one as they are putting it out. I'm not sure. Still,
I've not seen any questions. Not seen a single one. How do I even see this? I don't even know how to see them.
Okay, the first question is whether it is possible to copy Paligo output to XML frameworks like Data. So I believe we showed it using the source code. So
no, the answer to that one is at any point you can go publish, you can go XML, and this gives you completely standard DocBook that you could move over to a data system if you wanted to.
Cool, nice. So second one, there are a follow-up question. So that is, does Paligo allow collaborative authoring? And its follow-up question is, how do we exercise source control and version control?
What was the first? I didn't get the first part. What was the first question?
Does Paligo allow collaborative authoring?
Yeah, we'll get there. We'll hopefully get to the collaboration side. Okay, but the collaboration, or if you look, the second part, source control, just look at here. I've opened this topic and it says it's been checked out by Steve. If I open this topic, sorry, let's save it first. Thank you, Paligo. This has now been checked out. Nobody else can work on it. And this is, no, that's been checked in. This one's been checked in. This one's been checked out. I always get confused between checked in and checked out. But this one's got the green and that's been checked out. And that's the one being checked in. So it's completely built in. You're seeing the benefits of the versioning being built into the system as a core platform. Without going into detail, I'm not going to go in there. But if you even look at branching, just the fact that branching is part of the product rather than sort of kind of Git integration, I think makes a big difference. But we can't go there because we won't get anything else done. Okay, I'm going to move on if that's okay. I'd like to do very quickly a couple of examples of reuse and then go into conditioning and translations and publishing before we need to finish. I think we've got 22 minutes left before we finish today, correct?
Yes, sure, Steve, you can continue. Hope it has answered the audience's question. If not, please, you can ask the questions by yourself at the end of the meeting. Yeah. Steve, you can continue.
Well, yeah, time really goes quickly when you're having fun. I mean, I can't believe how late it is, but that's the way of the world. Okay, right. So I'll just give you a couple of examples of some reuse. I could put a topic here, for example, insert, component, and let's put another topic here, for example, like payroll. I could make another section myself. So we'll call it a second section, something like this. And we could even put, let's say, a check panel, do this and this. You know, if we're here, let's do an accordion very quickly, a drop down. So I'll go to the section. I'm going to create something called a role, make an accordion, little icon appears here. If I do a preview for you, watch quickly what happens to this one. See here, I've got a little heading, a little table of contents on the right, and I've got my little accordion that does that for me, with a little drop down. All very quick and simple to do. And say I want to make this reusable. So I can actually go to the section and convert to a reusable component, in other words, a topic. And now you'll see here the topic is over here, and I've reused it here. Okay. There are conditions and variables, but we're going to run out of time. So I'm going to move on now to the collaboration side. Again, if you guys want to see more detail of how Paligo does reuse, I'm more than happy to do another session for you guys in another one of your consecutive weeks of content. So we can do our assignments at different levels, at a topic and a publication. I'm doing it on the publication and going review. And in the review, I can say who's going to see it. So I can create groups of users or sending it just to myself for the time being. I can even set it with variables and stuff ready for them to see. And it goes out if you're using Teams or using Slack. They can also go out as a notification. So Paligo kind of fits into your regular corporate way of working. I'm going to go into the planner, and this is actually here a real view of the process and who's signed off. If someone signed off, you'd see a tick. In this case, there's hours. When does it start? When does it end? So you can also go in and modify the assignment. So if you've got a case, for example, where Janet needs to sign off and you can't carry on until Janet's signed off, you can actually see here who's signed off and who hasn't. So I see TechRad as like mini project managers. Every assignment is a little project. And now let's go and see how the collaboration works. So I've got an assignment that I sent to myself. It could also just be a URL. They would get this assignment in Teams or Slack or email. Again, just that URL, as you can see on the screen that I've selected. No more. That's all they need to do. Nothing to learn. I could go through the hierarchy if I want to see the different bits of content. So I want to put a comment in sending your CV. So there's two types of users in the collaboration side in Paligo: reviewers and contributors. I'm about to show you them both. First of all, the reviewer, it's really, really simple. I click on somewhere and I would maybe say finish sentence, maybe even bring someone into the discussion. This is very, very similar to Google Docs, and quite intentionally. This is not meant to be a learning curve. Your SMEs don't like using something else. They're really hard to convince. Let's use Paligo. I'd rather use Mockdown or writing Confluence or whatever it could be. But if we can encourage them to write in Paligo, it makes the whole workflow much easier. There's no conversions and no imports. It all works together. So we've made this as easy as we can for people to use it, and we're actually working on it even more for the rest of this year. So you can see that someone else could put a content back in here. You can archive old comments, restore old comments. You can mark if it's done or rejected. So if the reviewer comes back, they can see the process. And you can also see these comments in the authoring environment. I'm just not going to show you just to save time. But you can all understand the reviewers. In fact, everybody in your company could be a reviewer if you like as well. It's very, very simple to use. Now let's talk about contributors. Contributors are going to be able to add, edit, and delete content. So the first thing I'm actually going to do, I'm going to create what's called a snapshot. This is a point in time that I can compare against, so I can see what's changed. So maybe before I do my draft, and sometimes it's automatic in Paligo, depending what the process you are, but I can compare. I'm now going to edit mode. Edit mode allows me to go in there. So I could be an SME, double click in here, and maybe I'm going to put write your own CV. This topic describes. Let's put a new paragraph in here. So they could use this at, say, 2 different parts of the process. You could send them maybe a blank page. You could send them with a template like troubleshooting, question and answer, and things to fill in, right? Or whatever it may be to acquire that new content. You could also send it out for people to edit the content later. So whichever part of that process works for you, and we say they've also got the ability, if they find they need to create a new topic, so they could also create their own new topics as well. I'm just not going to do it again to save time, but you can see what happens. And when it's finished, you can go here and compare with the previous version to see what's changed. And there you can see here what's been removed and what's been added. Very simple. And very soon you'll have the track changes of accept, reject, suggest, all those types of things in here as well. So again, it really shouldn't be very different, and it's not hard. An SME won't agree unless it's easy. And hopefully they'd find this easy as well. So the whole of your team, that whole authoring workflow can be done inside Paligo. What I'd like to do next is go into translation and then publish, as in finish the story. Let's see the results of our work. But first of all, let's go into translation. And translations, by the way, are generally really hard to do in tech writing, as most of you can probably nod if you had your cameras on. And they're also very expensive for our companies. You might even, if you say in InDesign, you'd send an InDesign file out, translators would have to import it, they translate it, and then they would probably have to do all the DTP, the desktop publishing, to format their InDesign document just to get it back out again. The Paligo process is just so much easier. And I often say just the translation easily more than pays for the cost of Paligo for the amount of time cost will save. So we have all these statuses, work in progress, in translation. I'm going to put this in translation. It won't work without, because if I try to open something when something's in translation, Paligo will tell me you can't do that. If you've ever had a case in the past where you've actually created content, you've sent content for the translation, updated the source, then the translation comes back and it's not aligned anymore, I call those sleepless nights. And I've had them before. In Paligo, that should never happen. Technically, you'd branch the version, work on a parallel, and merge it back together. You should never have those sleepless nights for translations. I'm going to add a language because we don't have one yet. Translation, add a language, and let's choose Czech, just because it's on the screen. And now all the topics have that language. If I just go to the bribing topic for a second, you'll see that Paligo says you can't open it, because it's in translation, and it's be very naughty to click on continue. But now that we're in translation mode, I can go here, I can go create assignment, so I can go edit and translate. This is the translation view. Oh, how? Oh, that's right, this one isn't. I've done a check on, see, this is a very good point. I've translated this before, this topic in another publication. Paligo remembers the translation that I did for it. It's only going to ask, only needs you to translate the content rather I haven't translated already. Now, the process what we do is export translation, and XLIF, and this is significant, is the translation format used by translation memory systems, right? It's their XML. We don't give them DocBook, we don't give them Word, we don't give them the source code. We give them the document in their format. It makes life so much easier for the TMSs. All the work is on us. And we also integrate with other systems like MemSource, which is a cloud-based TMS. If you were using things like Trados, you'd send them an XLIF. And there's other companies currently integrating with us. So we're using our API. Crowd and XTM are currently working on their translations. More and more customers are integrating with Paligo. Okay, so either it would be initiated from outside the system or from within Paligo. You'd export, and as soon as you get that file back, you would import it back, or it's done automatically and it's ready. What I'm going to do now is I'm going to do an auto translation using Google, but this should only be used for demo and trial purposes. We are not recommending you use Google Translate for your professional documentation, but it's lovely for now, giving a presentation to a technical writing tribe in India. And there we go, we can see our content in Czech. Very simple. You could also go in if you wanted and edit this content if you like. You can technically translate directly inside Paligo, but it's strongly recommended to use a TMS. So that was completely painless. Now I want to finish our presentation by publishing the documents that we've done. I'm going to go to publish. I'm going to go to PDF. I'll choose one format we have already. I'm going to choose both languages and put them both in a PDF and publish that. I'm also going to go to publish. I'm going to go to HTML5, choose basically one that I have here. Languages, check, combine, and off you go. And the PDF you see is already finished, so I'm just going to expand it on my other screen. And we'll drag it over. And this is the PDF we just created. We can see we've got it in, there's the table of contents in Czech and in English. I could do it I could change the languages around. You can see there's an automatic tab on the right-hand side. Here's the content. All very, very simple to do. I've done no work to get here. And here's the English version, as you can see. So there's a PDF with no work translated into 2 languages. Now, let's open the HTML. Let's see what Paligo's done for us out the box without any work for a beautiful looking knowledge base. Oops, excuse me. There we go. This is what we've just created out the box. We've got a search for, for example, CV. It'll find the content. It's got a hierarchy on the left. Let's go back and let's have a look at it in Czech. And there's our Czech version. Very little to do. Okay. Very, very simple to do this stuff. So I believe it's 20 past. So I've tried to leave 5 minutes for questions, and then you guys can wrap up, I assume, is the plan. Has anybody got some questions for me? You can make them hard if you like.
I'll ask the easiest question. Does it auto-save?
Yes, it does. You go, when you go to here, let's just open a topic. It's always good if you can answer a question with a bit of a view. Now I'm going to get out of translation. I'll be naughty. I click on here, go to editing, and I can turn on autosave. And if we're going to talk about that, every revision is in here. So if I go to a document and I go to revisions, it saves every revision. And I can revert back whatever it wants. I can compare different versions of these things. I'll show one other revision. Let me just change this, do this, Steve, save. I can actually go to this paragraph itself, go para, text, and usage and show history. And you see I changed it just now, and I do a compare. It actually shows me exactly what changed between them, which is really, really useful when it comes to to your history and versioning. Next question.
So I have a follow-up question. Does it create different versions for every autosave?
So it creates a different revision for every autosave. That's what we had here. When I went to there, they're different visions of the same topic.
Okay.
I could also create a new topic based on that one, for example, create a new document based on an old version. Let's say somebody comes in and completely messes it up. Happened to me once in FrameMaker 20 years ago. They had to restore the database for the whole day before to get my little file. Here you just go revert back and you're done.
Okay. Then second question, is it possible for the writer to change the preview template using the CSS?
So we haven't got there. If there are no questions, I can show. If you want me to, I can show you how to change the layout. It depends how many questions we have. I'm more than happy to show you. You decide, Sandeep.
Okay, that's done. So what about the variables and conditioning? And
so the
yes, you can answer that question.
So maybe let's do the variables and conditions really quickly, okay?
Okay.
Right. If we've got time, right? I hope no one's going anywhere tonight. So I'm going to create a new piece of content. Let's call it welcome to. Put it there. Okay. So first of all, we have variables, and let me show you them here. I'm going to right click and open this in a new tab. It's a table. First, we have different types of variables. We have text, translatable text, and images. Images you may not have seen before. I'll explain. So a normal variable would be like a product name, right? With the name Apple TV. These are our variants, by the way. It's a table with the complete options. Like when I used products in the past, in the more than the hats, you had to, manually change them each time. Here I've got I just say I'm publishing to Apple and it picks up all the relevant information I want. But also an image. So I've got a welcome page like I have. Welcome to the top product name. You'd understand that'd be a variable. I want to see a picture of the variable as well. Also, you could also use that as a variable. The image is a variable. It makes a huge difference. Or say I OEM my product and every screenshot changes because it has a slightly different logo. Rather than using conditions all over the system, we can then just put them in variables. So let's put a variable into our document. So let's go into welcome. And I go welcome to insert variable Apple and the product name. And I say to want to put, I love it. And I want to picture the product as well. So I just go insert variable Apple and I put the product image in. And again, Paligo has put in all the elements I need. Has a really good feature called preview profile settings. And I can actually say, what's it going to look like if I choose Apple TV when I publish? Like that. What's it going to look like if I choose Max? Like that. Okay. Really cool and simple. Now you guys want to know all about conditions. So hopefully I can do this really quickly. Let me just set myself up. Let's create something called beginners. Let's experts. Let's create a little list. This is for all. This is just for version 3.0. And this is for everyone. So for those of you again using the hat, you have what I call, intellectual gymnastics. Often working out what conditions show and don't show is really hard on the mind. It tires you out. It's going to be much easier now with Paligo. We have what's called lots of attributes. I call them subjects. So let's click on beginners. I'm going to attribute. There's an attribute called audience. Now I've got all these values. I could create my own value and select that as well. Obviously, I'm not going to use such silly letters. So we're going to choose beginner. And I click on now experts, audience, and I'll choose expert. And now I want to, this is version 3.0 only. So briefly, I don't want a condition on para. By the way, profiling, conditioning, and filtering are all the same term. So I just if I use a different term, I apologize for the inconsistency. But I want a condition on the list item. I want the whole thing to go. So I click on my attributes here. It's always the same list as this one. And I click on list item. And there's a lot of different subjects: country, market, product, version. So I'm going to select version 3. And now I'm going to preview again with these profile settings so I can see what it's going to look like. So if I choose profiling and I go, for example, the beginner, and then I choose version being, say, version 2.0, you notice how that disappears? All that wasn't matched disappears. And if I go options, hide unmatched elements, look, you see the experts has disappeared and number 3 became a number 2. I'm actually testing exactly what it looked like when I publish. And it's like telling a story. I want to say the beginners for version 2, those of you using Windows in the UK. And it's not hard on the brain to work all that stuff out. And when I would publish, this is what I would do without actually doing a full publish, go HTML5, for example, and I would go profiling attributes to be, for example, audience, beginners, and version 3. I would say I want the variable to be Apple TV, and I would save the settings. So I just call it like that for now. I don't need to create the logic because next time, all I'd go here and publish and you're done. So hopefully that like 4-minute description of variables and conditions is useful. You saw a function you might never have seen before with the images variables. And also if I go to a variable and I go to this one, I can actually say usage information, and Paligo is showing me where is this used in my system. Okay, so I've got that global database view as well again. Back to you, Sandeep.
Thanks, Steve, for showing that demo for that question. So we have one question. We have 2 more questions. Hope you can answer them. One is, are there any limitations in Paligo?
Well, it can't make a cup of coffee. I've tried to get it to make a coffee, and it hasn't made me a cup of coffee. It's hard to answer that question. It depends on the case. There are cases, and I'm an honest person, at least I try to be, and I wouldn't work for a company that isn't. Right? With enough companies, customers, or prospects, we've actually said Paligo is not a fit for you. If it's not a fit, we'll tell you. And I can tell you a good case. If you're a company with, for example, 200 topics and a single writer and a startup, then probably Paligo is not for you. Okay, if you're middle to enterprise company where you have lots of reuse, lots of versioning, lots of writers, right, lots of things going on, then Paligo could be for you. You know, it's harder to answer the question more specifically. If that person wants to have a chat with me, if anyone wants to have a chat with me and talk about their company in the user case, I'll give you my honest opinion if I think Paligo could be useful or it wouldn't be useful.
That was a very straight, honest answer. Thanks, Steve.
Okay.
And last one for today. How organic is migrating older docs into Paligo? So I'm not sure. Yeah, please.
Sorry, I didn't mean to interrupt you. What a brilliant question that is. Okay. So we have a lot of them out the box, import content, and I'll show you what's out the box. Basically, HTML author it, Confluence, bringing Ditta, the doc books, HTML, helper manual, Flare, quite a popular one, RoboHelp, Swagger, Word, and Zendesk. But the truth is sometimes an import can be painless and sometimes it can be painful. So if you're bringing, say, Flare, and it's well-structured Flare, which is not always the case, but say it's well-structured Flare for what they have, or for Ditta, then it might come in without a problem. If you've got like this weird XML format, it would need our customization services to actually help import it. It really depends on the format. I'll give you another example. We've got a Word format, and at the end of a lot of companies are still moving out from Word into a more professional tool, and they have, say, 100 Word documents split into 10 families. And rather than, so say each family has 10 products, all quite similar, I wouldn't be telling them import all those 10 products into Paligo at once, because you'd want to be reusing them. What you'd want to do first is actually prepare your import. Prepare everything properly first, get the architecture, the strategy right, and then import it. And I'll tell you something maybe that's worth mentioning. The success of Paligo is down to 2 things, and don't let anybody tell you otherwise. 50% product and 50% human. As good as the product is, if your content is messy and you've unstructured, you haven't imported it properly, you haven't thought it through properly, you haven't done a proper analysis through information architecture, then the solution might not work very well because the rubbish came in, rubbish comes out. No different to any product, but I'm just telling you the plainly obvious. It's really important that you organize your content first before using Paligo. Then you'll get the best out of the product. It's a brilliant question. I'm glad somebody asked it. Sandeep, we can't hear you.
Sorry, I was talking on mute, and I was very much impressed seeing the drop down for migrating the older docs. Now I'm wondering what is not possible with Paligo. And so we have a last question, and we have a one follow-up. One question we skipped. In the interest of time, we have exceeded our time limit. So can you quickly tell us, is it possible to personalize a Paligo account? That is one. Two, is it possible for you now to give a quick demo on configuring the preview publishing of our Paligo content?
I don't know what personalizing the UI means. So you can't do too much to change the UI. It's kind of set, but there are options to will be in there to allow you to change that in the future. Changing the layouts. Okay, so if you guys want to stick here for a bit longer, see some people have dropped out. You guys want a bit more. Okay, let me just open our help and I'll just give you an example of what goes on. But everything in here, every class can be changed. And if I go into a topic, just some example functionality, you see this automatic table of contents on the right, a little icon here for copying the link. And was this helpful? So I'm going to show you how you change a lot of that. So I'm going into layouts and I'm just doing HTML5. The PDF would be slightly different, but we haven't got time to do both. So I'd go create new layout and I'd base it on probably the default HTML5 help center, but I've got one already, which I'm going to open by clicking on this one in a new tab. And some of the functionality I just showed you, for example, if I go to general, we have different things about what the file name should be, but no more details on that just for now. But whoops, my mouse ran very quickly. Here, update your URL on scroll. That would, sorry, this one I meant. Copy the anchor URL on click. That's what made that little anchor. If I go to the table of contents side, we can decide what level of table of contents we want on the left, even if the publication has more. That automatic table of contents on the right, all I did was enable the use page talk. Very simple. If I go to choose document, let's go to our demo document and we can use that just as an example. This is a quick way to publish things, to have a look at them. If I go to full screen, there I can see it. We've also got different themes. So let's choose theme 2, for example, and update. And there it is. And if I want to change something in here, so what I would do, as for example, right click on here, go into inspect, and I'm assuming some basic HTML. And if I want to change something, for example, I take the line height and let's make it 15, something like that. And then I would just I would copy this change, copy that there, copy that, and put it into a separate CSS file. You don't need to learn all the CSSs. All you need to do is to change the, put one additional one in, or say I want to change this background here. So I go again, inspect. The color here is purple. Let's make it blue. You see it changed to blue? All you would do is make those little changes, add them to a CSS file, and then in the CSS part, you bring in your logos. So you change the logos, and this is where you bring in that separate CSS, which has got 10 lines, the fonts, anywhere on the page you want to change. That's what you change here. You can also change Java. You can also put JavaScript. So if I show you an example, say from volume, you'll see what they've done. They've actually they're using Freshdesk for ticketing. So a little bit of JavaScript. You'll see on the right-hand side in a second, HubSpot, chat if you want to open up. This is all done out the box. Another CCMS, you'll be paying a lot of money for customizations to change any of this. All you need to do is change CSS. And if you want to be clever, do JavaScript. If you want to see another example very quickly, let's have a look at single store. And this is their content inside Paligo, actual actual content. And their technical writing manager is actually a very talented individual, so they do really good stuff. And if any of you are using the Zendesk one, let me just show you really quickly an example from ShipStation. This is a company using Zendesk with Paligo, pushing to Zendesk. They have multi-brand, they have different Zendesks, all sharing the same content with little differences. So one Paligo, multiple Zendesks, and they just have some very nice, I don't know, content in here. Let's find something with a, let's find something with a drop down. Where's the drop down? Never mind. There's an example. So never mind. What I showed you is how simple it is to change the output. Just add a CSS file, a bit of JavaScript, lots of options built in, and there you get your layout. Anybody wants more information, I'm more than happy to speak to anybody who's here if you need more details, because we ran through things quite quickly.
I think we don't have any questions right now. We are actually out of time. We need to respect everyone. In interest of time, Puneet, can we have few more minutes for the audiences to ask the question, or can we continue with our next session? Section.
Okay, just give one moment if somebody has a question. Otherwise, I think we are good. Pretty good questions so far. Somebody has any question right now?
Have we got any existing Paligo users around at the moment?
I think not in this room right now, but we know a few who are using Paligo. Actually, just now they migrated to Paligo.
Oh, wonderful.
I think, Sandeep, we don't have any question. I think we time up. If there is any question, we can send the question to Steve in email. Yeah.
With pleasure. With pleasure.
Sure. So, okay, Steve, I believe Naveda has your email ID. So if we get any question after this session, we will share those questions with you, and so you can answer those questions.
You're more than welcome to share my email with everybody here as well before or after this meeting if they want to contact me directly.
Sure, Steve. That's so